Let's bring in the political panel. We have with us Karen Finney and David Polyansky. Thanks for being here. David, welcome to The Lead. Good to have you. So the White House is aware how high the stakes are for Biden tonight. They are pretty high. This is what Biden's chief of staff, Jeff Zients, said to Politico. Quote, "You're going to see a very energized president. This is a big moment, and this president rises to those big moments." Yes, it is a big moment. The stakes are super high. Frankly, when I was covering President Biden when he was 25 years ago, when he was in his 50s or whatever, like even then the prospect of him doing a 1-hour speech would be something that his aides would be nervous about.
No,
not because of age, but because he might say the wrong thing or whatever. He was prone to gaffe. Anyway, what does Biden need to do tonight?
Look, I think he needs to do a couple of things. Number one, talk about the contrasts and lay that out in the frame, because going forward, that's a lot of how we're going to be covering the presidential, this split screen, if you will, like we saw when they were both at the border. What is the plan 2025 that Donald Trump is offering? What is it that I'm offering? What is my vision? And a lot of that, I think, will be couched in this conversation about protecting democracy and what's the future we want for our kids. Number two, I think what you're going to see is he's going to try to talk a bit more about what he's done. And I think the guests in the First Lady's Gallery will be part of helping to humanize that story. So that's not just about facts and figures, although he's got great numbers, but make it about the people whose lives have been impacted positively or negatively when we have had inaction. And then I think the third thing he really needs to do is to just be himself. I mean, it's very sad to me that we are again approaching a State of the Union where everybody's worried about what's Marjorie Taylor Greene going to do and what's so-and-so going to do, when these are meant to be, serious, thoughtful conversations with the president, Congress, and the American people. Mm-hmm. But I think he's got it. You know what? If they come after him on something, I have every confidence he'll be fine.
David, what are you looking for tonight?
Well, look, I think yesterday was a great day for Donald Trump, and today is a great opportunity for the president. He gets to stand in front of the nation and talk about not only his accomplishments, but his vision. So to me, there's four areas. Seeing that quote earlier, I think the first is fitness. And can he get on that stage tonight for an hour or plus and demonstrate to the country he's got the energy to carry the country forward for another 4 years? And look, he's trailing Donald Trump by about 20% plus in terms of that category. So tonight's an opportunity to do it. There's also some peril that comes along with it. Number two, I think he's going to have to tackle immigration. That is the number one issue in the country, not just in totality, but with independence. And tonight he's going to lay out his vision. I think he's going to try to blame Donald Trump and Republicans, but he's also going to have to account for the 9.6 million people that have come across illegally over his tenure. And so he's going to have to address that. Number three, I think the economy's improving, but people don't feel that it's improving, and he's not getting the benefit of it at this point. So I think he's got to make the case and try to take credit for it. And the last thing I'd say is I think he's going to have to balance his base tonight, whether it's Israel and Palestinian aid, to electric vehicle mandates and car removals while he has the UAW president next to the First Lady. Those are a lot of balancing acts that an incumbent president has to take. And it'll be a challenge for him tonight, but it is a great opportunity.
Can I just mention one other thing? So Donald Trump has said he's going to, I don't know if he's going to live tweet or live social, whatever you call those.
Truth social,
Truth social, whatever you call it.
Live truth.
Right. Sure.
Right, yeah.
Can't fact check it fast enough. I mean, that right there, two things about that I want to mention. Number one, that's the contrast. Joe Biden's going to be having a serious conversation about the country in the future, and God only knows the kind of screed we're going to hear from Donald Trump, because as we know, when he is on the device live, it's scary, the kinds of things that he says. And we've seen the rhetoric has gotten more racist and sexist and sort of out of bounds. The second thing, though, he's already stepping on his own party's message. They're trying to put forward this young woman,
Katie Britt, new senator from Alabama. Right?
From Alabama, to say, hey, we're kinder, gentler, we care about IVF and young people. And what? It's going to be the old white guy who is going to be stealing her thunder with his phone, basically reminding everybody, he's the one who's in charge of the party. It doesn't matter what that young woman says, unfortunately.
So I want to play something that a member of House Republican leadership, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, Republican of New York, said yesterday. She was trying to evoke something Reagan said when he debated Jimmy Carter in 1980. Take a listen.
Are you better off today than you were 40 years ago? The answer for hardworking Americans across the country is a resounding no.
So it was a great line that Reagan used in 1980 about 1976. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Now, 4 years ago today was March 2020, and that was a pretty awful month.
Yeah.
That was when COVID really hit the United States. It's when the NBA shut down. It's when Tom Hanks. I mean, you know,
it was awful.
Everybody was hoarding toilet paper. I mean, so. Maybe 5 years ago they should change it to, are you better off? I mean, what do you think? I just think it needs a little tweaking.
Well, look, I mean, it is interesting. Even in the Republican primary this go-around, I think there was a lot of litigation over the last year of the Trump presidency.
Right.
Spends, expenditures, government infusion, mask mandates, the vaccines. There were a lot of skeptics, even in our own party. It didn't stop him there, and I don't think it stops now. The fact of the matter is, the polling shows with the president's current job handling versus Trump's standing right now. I mean, Trump on average is 2.2% ahead nationally, and he's leading by, in most cases, a significant margin in 5 out of the 6 battleground states. So the question for the president tonight is, how does he remind folks that maybe, just maybe, some of the things that he's done over the last few years actually had to do with, you know, the improvement we've seen in the economy, for instance. But that's a tough sell because people felt really good when the economy was great 4 or 5 years ago. They just don't feel it right now. And that's a tough thing for any politician to convince otherwise.
We did not feel good 3 years ago. So please, yes, please ask yourself, how did you feel 3 years ago?
Even 4 years ago.
Before 4 years ago. Even 4 years ago. Yes. How did you feel? How did you feel?
Let me ask you, because David makes a good point. You know, when you talk to Democrats on Capitol Hill and in the White House, there is kind of this denialism about, say, well, what the public thinks about President Biden's job on the economy is such and such. Like, well, the economy's doing so much better, and inflation's down from 9% to 3%, and unemployment's under 4%, and and you know, 150 million new jobs, whatever, 15 million, not 150 million. That's something else. That's something else. But my only point is, like, they deny what the public thinks about such a thing and just talk about the facts and figures. And I get that, but the facts and figures don't vote.
Correct.
It's the people that vote.
But I think you're going to hear an acknowledgement of that from the president. It's part of why he talked about this strike force earlier this week about how do we lower costs. Because if you think about it, the president, any president, is limited in what he can do to bring down costs. And so, yes, jobs are good, the economy's good, but I think there is a recognition, but people aren't feeling it because costs are, I mean, I feel it. We all feel it in our daily life.
Food and rent are the main things, right? Food and rent.
And gas if you live in a state where you drive long.
Well, I drive electric now.
Okay. So, well, that's a whole other mission.
That's a new thing. Right. Well, that's electric vehicles. You know, but go into that a little bit more, because this is a real tension that we probably don't cover enough on the show, which is the tension between Biden's desires when it comes to climate change and converting the economy to less of a fossil fuel economy, and the UAW workers. And I'll let you get the final word.
Well, that's exactly right. And look, and on our side of the equation right now, it's about personality. Do you like Donald Trump? Do you want him to represent you as a conservative and as a Republican? And do you want him to lead the country going forward? It really is about his personality. On the Democrat side, it's more about policy, and there are a lot of tensions. And again, going back to it, if you're a hard hat union worker in Toledo or outside of Pennsylvania, and you see a car ban, being proposed by the Biden administration, man, that's pretty tough for you to swallow.
Final word, yeah.
If you look at the deal that the UAW was able to get, they were working on how do you mitigate that, and President Biden was part of that. And the other big topic I would say is look about manufacturing jobs. He did bring those jobs back. We are exporting more than we were 4 years ago. So again, it's not just about talking about the record. It's about talking about the real pain that people are feeling and what he's trying to do to address it. One thing we didn't get to, reproductive freedom.
Yes.
Contraception, IVF, access to abortion. That is going to be a huge issue this election cycle. Republicans don't want to talk about it. Joe Biden is the person who's going to lay that out.
You guys were so good. Let's have you back in the next hour. Okay.